episode of the Bottle Rocket podcast is brought to you by Game Eclipse TV. Take two. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Bottle Rocket podcast with me, Chris.
And me, Jake.
And me, Ben.
So, Comic-Con has just been upon us.
Yes, just fallen upon our faces.
If you will, yes.
If you will. And we've seen a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I think it's one of those events that you wait for in the year. It's a bit like the E3 of comics, particularly regarding the movies.
I was going to say it seems to be a lot more about the movies now.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of news breaking in the comic world about various story arcs and stuff that's going on in that, but the overall coverage seems to be about the movies nowadays and the big stars behind it.
You mean like Black Captain America and female Thor, not Lady Thor, Thor.
Make that distinction between the two, please.
That distinction has been made by Marvel themselves,
Right.
but that's within the comics. I highly doubt we'll see that in the movies anytime soon.
Lady Thor.
No. Thor. But
Okay.
Thor is female.
Okay.
There is a character, Lady
Femme
Thor.
Oh, right. Fine.
But they're just trying to they're bringing a female Thor in now,
Yeah.
and that is Thor, not the character Lady Thor.
Okay. I like putting femme at the beginning of things, like has come in with the Mass Effect series. So femme,
Yeah.
we'll go with.
Femme Thor.
Still got a good amount of power behind it.
Definitely, but yeah, like I say, it seems to be a lot more about the movies nowadays.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice that we live in a world where that is possible. I mean, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, this would never have happened. Like, 'cause, Comic-Con has been around for quite a while now.
Oh yeah,
but
very long.
It is crazy the amount of money that Hollywood are throwing around at comic book properties to make amazingly good multinational blockbusters out of them. I think it's great.
Take a look at that panel that was sitting there for Age of Ultron.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God. How much money was on that table, basically?
The payroll just to get that table there that day would have been astronomical.
Absolutely. And like you say, now you can do a Comic-Con that is basically hinged around all the different comic book movies that are going to come out. I'd imagine I don't know for sure, but I'd imagine when Spider-Man, the very first one, came out, it would probably have been like a little panel in Comic-Con. It's like, we're actually having a movie about a comic book property. And now you can almost kind of base an entire show around it or kind of hinge it around it.
I think the main reasons that these studios really go to Comic-Con anymore is for the movies. Mm-hmm. That's probably their biggest money spinner at the moment. I think the comics themselves almost come as an aside, which is, I don't know if that's sad or what, but it's obviously a sign of evolution within the industry. So
I guess I was never big into a lot of comics. I think I know about sort of a lot of the heroes and things that are coming out in the films, but I have to admit, like, the more recent releases are beginning to test my knowledge quite significantly. I wasn't so up on the last generation, and so I'm kind of, for me at least, or for people like me that perhaps went into the comics as a kid, seeing these kind of guys get brought to the big screen in quite a faithful way, generally, it's pretty cool.
Well, that seems to be happening more and more, because at first, when the comic book movies started coming out, they were action movies that needed, they had that sort of comic book influence. But now what we're finding is comic book fans are now making comic book movies.
Yes.
So you get this faithful delivery of these characters and these stories that is true to the original content.
I think it helps a lot nowadays as well that Marvel and DC have resecured the rights to the vast majority of their properties, and they obviously are aware of how much money and success can come out of these movies, so they are doing them as true to the comics as possible.
I'm just waiting for the day that Marvel and Fox shake hands and say, let's at least share the properties that we own. Avengers X-Men crossover. It's got to happen.
Exactly.
Awesome.
They need Spider-Man back as well, don't they?
Yeah,
Like kind of urgently. So-
definitely.
I know that Marvel Studios are actively collaborating with Sony, though. They are sort of pitching the film releases together. So the Spider-Man film releases and all the Marvel phase films are being made around one another, so that obviously everybody can get the most out of that particular release time frame, which is pretty cool. It doesn't suggest that we'll see Spider-Man in the Avengers anytime soon, which is a bit of a shame because he has been a member various times.
I guess the problem is that they all make so much money. Like I can't think of any kind of big comic book blockbuster that's been a huge flop, like that has kind of really damaged the studio. Was maybe Thor 2? Did that one probably didn't do so well?
I thought that was awful, personally.
Yes.
I thought the best part of that whole film was the mid credits cutscene.
Right.
For Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, that's
which I have to add, by the time they do the next podcast, at least me and Ben will have seen Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
I will try and build us some Guardian of the Galaxy time, I think.
We've already booked tickets for opening night.
damn
So,
straight.
I just absolutely cannot wait to see that movie.
No, it looks pretty epic. Absolutely. I think it's probably the most excited I've been for a Marvel phase film since Avengers, to be honest.
It's just the hype surrounding it at the moment. It's getting 5-star ratings from everywhere. It's on like, what was it, 97% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
People are surprised at how good this movie is.
Yeah.
All
from the director of Scooby-Doo.
Well, this is it. I mean, there was a tweet that James Gunn put out quite a while ago, and I thought it was beautiful. It said something along the lines of, I've made mistakes before, I've done things wrong, but I think I've found what I was put here to do. And that's bring Guardians of the Galaxy to you guys.
Mm-hmm. Actually, to be fair, looking at the Wikipedia page, he only wrote and produced Scooby-Doo's 1 and 2. So maybe it wasn't entirely that. He did also direct Super, which is a wonderful film. If you
yes.
that.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good.
Not seen that. But in more positive news, coming out of Comic-Con, they've announced Guardians 2 is out 2016. So even though the film's not even had a release, they've already given it a release date. And I think that Marvel have said that James Gunn's got the director's chair again, as long as the film as well.
If they turn around now and saying it's going to be out in 2016, they've got to give it to Gunn because he's proved that he can work on a really sort of tight schedule with Guardians 1, because it was only 18 months ago that they came out with that idea and said, this is the movie we're putting out next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but saying that there are rumours. There was a rumour last week that said that James Gunn could potentially direct Avengers 3 and take over from Joss Whedon. And if that's the case, then he's not going to have time to direct Guardians 2. I mean, obviously that's
you would imagine
a bit of a leap.
Well, you would imagine that Avengers 3, surely that would be the one where they cross over.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't think I've ever known a director direct 2 separate properties back to back.
No, I suppose. But at the same time, the filming locations and all that, they could work together.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's all speculation anyway. We don't, it's only a rumor at the moment. So that could mean anything.
It is all rumor and speculation.
I think I'd be a bit disappointed if Joss Whedon didn't make the Avengers 3, purely because he's done such a good job with Avengers 1 and Age of Ultron. From what we've seen and what we know, looks to be absolutely amazing.
It is a year away, though. Like I don't know. I think a lot can happen in 4 years, especially in kind of the movie industry.
Oh, definitely.
So you never know. It is kind of crazy that Marvel have sort of got their release schedule sorted out until about 2019, and I think that also kind of says like how solid they think the franchise is. Like, as in, like, we can keep on making blockbusters at this rate until 2019 without going bankrupt, which is pretty cool.
I think they're going to come into some difficulty during Phase 3. I'm pretty sure we can expect, a third Thor film. We know Captain America 3 is coming out. I believe that's going toe to toe with Batman v Superman.
That'll be a tough fight for Cap. That'll be his toughest fight yet.
That was a
box
bold
office
thing
fight.
to do, wasn't it? Yeah, because is it like the same day or same week or something like that?
I don't know exactly about the dates, but it's close. It's within the summer blockbuster time frame. So if you imagine how long some of the films have had runs in the cinema, then they're going to cross over, and at that point, then obviously it's going to affect both.
It is the same day, according to The Escapist.
Oh dear.
Yeah, May the 6th, 2016.
That's not
same day.
That's not going to happen.
No. Well, no, they just said, like, we're not going to move it. We're not going to move it. It's just going to be fine. We are sticking to our plan and sticking to our vision for the movies going forward. We have a very large vision that we're working on for Cap 3, and blah, 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 blah. We aren't going to alter that. Maybe we should, but we're not going to. So, and that's from Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige. It's bold, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
I think not just that though. Also, like the heroes that they're going to start introducing. So you've got the likes of quite probably Doctor Strange, who people have probably heard of but don't know much about, much like Guardians of the Galaxy. There's rumours of like Black Panther, obviously Ant-Man. Mm-hmm. Again, he's a known hero, but he's not necessarily one that people are really familiar with.
No, I hadn't really at all.
They've also they've increased the number of movies they're doing in the third phase as well. So, I mean, come Avengers 3, there's going to be that many people shoehorned into the movie. It's either going to be amazing or it could end up being potentially quite bad.
Fall apart under its own weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like the industry that it came from.
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Because that's what happens to comic books eventually, isn't it? There's just too much continuity.
Much going on.
Yeah, and you can't get into any individual franchise because you require the knowledge of everything that's gone before it in some ways. I think
that would be an interesting thing to sort of keep an eye on. You know, whether the arc of the movies mirrors the arc of the comic books.
Yeah, exactly. I think they've done a pretty good job so far of making each individual movie contained in its own right, but referencing other stuff. So, you know, if you watch Iron Man 3, having seen the Avengers, you get why Tony Stark's a bit messed up. Like that makes sense. But you could just enjoy Iron Man 3 on its own if you like that sort of thing. But yeah, I think it is going to get increasingly harder to stay abreast of all the plots, especially if they're kind of keeping on throwing new characters at people.
Yeah, well, it's like spinning plates, isn't it? You know, you can only keep so many in the air at the same time.
I guess.
Yeah. The good thing about
are they going to drop characters after they complete their respective trilogies? So are sort of Thor, for example, and Captain America and Iron Man going to take like a bit of a back seat in subsequent films? Is that the idea? Do we know? Any rumor of that?
Well, I think it comes down to sort of the contracts. I know that Robert Downey Jr. recently, although in the last couple of years he's been really skeptical about will he do Iron Man 4, etc., etc. Recently he's said that he's optimistic about an Iron Man 4. I don't know whether that's to do with how much money Disney are offering him to carry on the role, because he really does make Tony Stark.
Is that a definite? They're definitely doing an Iron Man 4?
It's not been confirmed as one of the titles within the next phase, but if Robert Downey Jr. is saying he's optimistic, then I've got a feeling that one of those will probably be Iron Man 4.
Yeah.
But most of the actors have got so many picture deal, which I think is part of the decision-making process for probably the studios and the actors themselves. What's the guy's name who plays Captain America? God, how could I forget?
Chris Evans.
Chris Evans. He's already expressly stated that once his contract with Marvel ends, which I think was a 6-picture deal for Captain America, which will come to Avengers 3, he's already said he wants to leave the character and start getting behind the camera. So
that's cool.
So I mean,
that could also tie in with they could tie a storyline in with that, because in the comic books, Steve Rogers dies and is replaced by Bucky Barnes.
AKA Winter
Bucky
Soldier.
Barnes, because he becomes the new Captain America. So there is options to sort of renew characters like that by taking original content and doing it that way.
Or going in new directions with it.
Or taking it in completely new directions, but I imagine there would be a backlash from the comic book loving community if that sort of thing started happening.
Yeah, I think if you end up with just this massive cast of characters, though, then you're really, I think, going to run into trouble.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
A few years down the line, of kind of alienating a lot of people, because I know a lot of people that aren't comic book fans that go and see these movies. Because they're colourful and interesting and funny, and Robert Downey Jr. is really charismatic and nice, and they sort of tolerate the fact that it's a comic book film. I think if you keep on making them more comic booky, I'm aware how sacrilegious this sounds, but if you keep on becoming more and more true to the source material, eventually you are going to alienate a lot of the people that are making these movies a success, which is the kind of mainstream blockbuster audience. Which is a bit weird, really. I think they've got the balance kind of right at the moment, in that they're just kind of getting true enough to the comic books to make everybody happy, and still remaining kind of interesting, accessible action films. I guess X-Men's a good example of that one. Like if you go back and watch the first X-Men, the Bryan Singer one, it is, like you said, it's just like an action film that happens to have the X-Men in it.
Yeah.
So they all have sort of individual one-on-one fights and whatever. And if you go and watch the most recent one, which is the 7th X-Men film, I guess, then it's much more true to the comic books, in that it's a big sprawling cast of characters that, in a kind of big sprawling complicated time travel plot, fighting as a team. And again, there are people that I know that really liked X-Men 1 that couldn't get their head into X-Men Days of Future Past because it just became too comic booky in some ways, or just too difficult to follow for an action film format.
Yeah, so, definitely. I mean, these movies now, they're all becoming like $1 billion movies.
Yeah.
And that is because of the balance that they've struck in accessibility and true content. And I think it's important to get that balance right, to keep the money coming in these truckloads of cash, just to keep the stuff going and keep it rolling. And that's why they're able to put out these sort of long-term goals of bringing movies out constantly.
There's a bit about like character retention as well. So we sort of talked about it a little bit earlier, that there are some studios that have got characters that are just kind of releasing movies just to keep the rights to that character, so they can't be proven to not be using it. So, well,
that's why we're getting a Fantastic Four reboot.
Ah, good.
We're getting one of them just so they can keep hold of the
yay
of that contract that end.
But I worry that this will make Marvel Studios, because we do live in that world where studios are holding onto their property as tightly as they can, even if it requires releasing crap movies that might be flops, that we might see sort of endless iterations of Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor, just to kind of keep hold of the character name, so that Sony doesn't buy it or something, knowing how successful it is.
It's a possibility,
and that would probably ruin it eventually, because it could go the other way. It could become like super comic booky, and alienate a lot of the mainstream fan base. Then they'd stop making money and collapse. Or it could become super awful and running out of ideas by trying to appease to the mainstream audience, and just kind of keep on making action films that happen to have Thor in it.
It's a bit of a tightrope at the moment, then.
It is, and I think it's kind of right at the moment.
So much pessimism.
Sorry, it's very pessimistic.
So instead, let's talk about the dawn of justice.
Oh my God! So yeah, the teaser trailer, was it, for that, came out. The first look at this movie that we're going to see in 2 years' time.
Oh yeah, the Comic-Con footage.
Not
describe it, Chris. Describe it, because no one can see it on the internet yet.
I've only read it. Apparently, you've got Batman looking like 10 men. in his mecha suit,
course.
standing on a rooftop by the bat signal, and the camera pans around, and that's pointing up at Superman, hovering in the air, glaring down with glowing red eyes.
Yes.
Now, my only problem with this is we got excited about this last year. This
Sure.
this Batman vs Superman movie. It's coming out in 2016.
Mm.
Is that
There's a disappointing delay.
it's this hype train that's been built already for like what, a 2.5, 3 hour film?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
We don't really know what to expect, do we?
it's always like we're waiting for the next thing. It's like, right, you've just seen that. Now here's what's going to happen, and it's a way off. It's a way off on the horizon at the moment.
Yeah. This hype train's been running for quite some time now.
That's
Like,
what I'm saying.
They've been rumored to be making this movie for at least 5 years, I think.
There's been different goes at making this particular sort of movie. This Justice League. I mean, there's scripts that date back to like 2006 and previous than that. But
It's ridiculous.
but they were all thrown out. But this particular thing's been running for about the last sort of 12 months ago. It got announced.
It got announced pretty much as soon as Man of Steel did well in the cinema. When was Comic? Well, Man of Steel came out like right at the beginning of June last year, and then Comic Con would have happened around about the same time as this year. So end of July.
It's like
literally a year ago it was announced just after Man of Steel came out.
I'm all up for the movie. I think the movie's so far it looks like it's going to be pretty great. It might get a little crowded with new characters coming in, but so far it looks like it could be really good. But
Who's been announced beyond Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman? Lex,
Jesse Eisenberg.
Officially, no characters have been announced, have they? Not officially.
Just pictures.
Not officially.
But there's casting rumours. A lot of casting rumours going around. They've potentially cast Cyborg, or at least the guy who's going to play him when he's a human, sort of younger guy, before he turns into
Cyborg.
the superhero known as Cyborg.
Yeah, there's the rumour of Jason Momoa playing Aquaman.
Yeah, that could be pretty cool.
That could be cool, but again, it's introducing a completely new property into an already quite crowded movie.
I was going to say, it seems odd. Like, is it a Justice League movie, or is it... Because straight at Batman v Superman, I could kind of get on board with, I think.
Well, it was originally sold as Man of Steel 2. But I think that over the course of the last 12 months and developing the film, it's actually just become a precursor to a Justice League movie.
Yeah.
I think
that introduces all the Justice League?
Well, near enough by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, I think so. It sounds like it might lack focus. Might become Spider-Man 3-ish. I think that's quite dangerous.
The one thing for me as well that stands out was, I think last week or this week, DC announced that their TV shows were in a different universe than their sort of movies. So you've got, Green Arrow running on a really high swell of popularity at the minute with a really good TV show. Highly anticipated Flash TV show. These are two staple members of the Justice League. So how do you convince cinema goers that the TV shows they've been following, and then the characters who really have to eventually come into the Justice League, are not one and the same?
Yeah, it's tough. But
that's
in the
going to be a
same
bit confusing.
in the same way, they've also got to convince people that Ben Affleck's Batman is a completely different Batman to Christian Bale's.
Yeah.
Well, mate, nobody will need convincing once they actually see the film or they see this
Once
badass
they see
trailer.
the Hulk that Ben Affleck's become.
No one will.
Have you
need
seen
to be
him recently?
convinced.
No, I haven't actually.
He makes Henry Cavill look small.
Let's Google image Ben Affleck. Actually, this is
he's
generally how I spend my mornings anyway. So
He's absolutely huge.
He's a big guy.
hang
The
on.
bat's getting big.
Ben Affleck images. It's mainly his face.
His chiseled face.
His chiseled face. I don't want to see your face for once, Ben.
I think
Ben
that
Affleck, Batman.
I'll be satisfied once I see some real footage of Dawn of Justice, like a decent trailer. It'll give me some idea of what to expect. But Until then, I'm just going to sort of sit back and relax and take the news as it comes because
that's the thing. It's 2 years away. That's what I'm going to keep coming
exactly.
back to. You know, why get people excited about it?
Exactly.
Well, they want to take the attention off Marvel, don't they? At the end of the day, they are still businesses competing for the bigger audience. So,
and that's probably why they run these hype trains.
Yeah, but then you've got Marvel saying, right, here's our roadmap. We've got this coming out this year. We've got this coming out in fall. We've got these 3 movies coming out next year. They've got this solid plan of churning out these massive blockbusters, and DC are just sitting there saying, we've got this movie coming out in 2 years. You're really going to like it.
Yes. What's going to tide us over, DC?
We're gonna make some TV shows that have got nothing to do with that movie.
Absolutely, and we're going to just throw out all the continuity, and we're going to piss off the comic book fans and the mainstream people that are fans of the TV show in one fell swoop. It's impressive. It's really well thought out.
I suppose it's worth considering though that up to yet the DC TV shows have had a much better reception than Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is a direct follow-on from the actual Marvel movie universe.
Yeah, that's true. The less we say about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the better.
At least they tried to set it in the same universe, though. I guess they tried to.
They attempted. What they attempted was great. I just think the execution was a bit lackluster.
And DC TV shows have been a staple for decades now. Like kind of the original sort of New Adventures of Superman and things like that were awesome. Smallville had a massive run. And it's got a kind of cult following, things like that. There's kind of a long history of DC heroes working in a TV show format.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it does as well, especially when you've got people like Superman. It's just like, well, here's a problem for Superman to solve, and he saves the day, wraps it up in half an hour. Difficult to kind of spin that over a 2-hour film.
Yeah.
It's like, why haven't you saved the day yet, Superman? Why haven't you just stepped on Batman?
Superman, you suck.
You really suck. And the longer this goes on, Superman, the more it undermines your character, if I'm brutally honest. As a Superman.
So we've talked Marvel, DC.
Mm-hmm.
What about Sony and Spider-Man? They've got a new quite a roadmap, should we say?
I think they've actually rejigged what the initial roadmap was, because I was under the impression that Spider-Man 3 was always going to release 2016, and then Spider-Man 4 2018 with spin-off movies in between. But what they've actually done is they've moved Spider-Man 3 to 2018, and they are releasing Sinister Six in November 2016. It was originally June, but it was clashing with Sony's other big tentpole movie, which was the Uncharted movie. Yeah,
yeah. That could be cool. I mean, the game was cinematic enough.
Exactly.
It shouldn't take much to convert that into the big screen, surely.
Oh no. Well, let's not talk about the Uncharted movie because so far we know absolutely nothing about that. But we do know about Spider-Man.
There is the rumour that the girl that plays Arya Stark in Game of Thrones has been asked about the lead role in that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that'd work.
No, that's the Last of Us movie, not Uncharted.
Oh God, yeah. Sorry, I just got my Naughty Dog properties completely mixed up there.
Maisie Williams would work better in that one, yes. I agree.
Yes,
but,
yes.
but okay.
I'll probably cut that bit out so I don't sound like a dick.
Oh, why? No, it's fine.
Okay.
I basically go through these podcasts going, I know nothing about any of these comic book properties. Let's talk about it.
So anyway, the Last of Us movie.
Let's talk about the Last of Us movie, Chris.
Let's just talk about the Sinister Six movie.
Yes.
I don't really know what to think of it at this point. I thought Amazing Spider-Man 2 was really good. There was some questionable bits towards the end, but overall it was a really good movie. And I just can't really see where the Sinister Six is going to fit in without sort of having Spider-Man in the movie.
I've still yet to see Spider-Man 2 due to my traumatic experience with Amazing Spider-Man 1. But did they introduce all of the Sinister Six, or have they got like a few more of them to introduce? Because they introduced Electro, didn't they?
I think
and a couple of others?
I think there's still sort of 2 members to go. If we assume that the Lizard is going to be one,
Yeah.
then you've got Rhino, which had a cameo at the end of the film,
Mm-hmm.
Green Goblin, and Electro. So there's
Yeah.
2 more members, which at this moment in time we have no idea who they're going to be.
Okay.
Well, wasn't there a tease in the movie of Vulture's wings and Doc Ock's arms?
Yeah, there was a tease. I mean, I suppose Vulture's always been Sinister Six, but then again, you've got Sandman as well. You know, he could potentially be introduced. I think Doc Ock's almost a given. He was teased quite heavily in Spider-Man 2, but it won't be Otto Octavius in this version of the film.
Well, just like Green Goblin wasn't Norman Osborn.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So, but they're not going to have Spider-Man in it.
Well, I mean, that's not confirmed, but I think the film's meant to centre around the villains.
Isn't the point of them that they fight Spider-Man? I might be missing something here. But
Yeah.
So are they just going to be sort of hanging out, or even worse, just wantonly destroying a city? It's a shame nobody with spider-based superpowers has showed up to stop us murdering all these people.
I think at this point, I've got no idea what they're going to do with it. The way they've sort of sold the movie is like they want you to root for the villains, you know, like they're anti-heroes. So there's got to be something that unites them together, which isn't Spider-Man. Maybe it's something, perhaps it's something even more evil than they are. I don't know.
What on earth could that be?
Yeah, exactly.
That would suck.
Well, Venom isn't inherently evil, but another character based on Venom is.
You know, I'd kind of like if they did actually do a kind of anti-hero movie where you're supposed to get behind the Sinister Six, as in like portraying Spider-Man as just some kind of dick that needs to be taken down, and properly played with that and spun it out like that, so you actually did sympathise with the Sinister Six. That could be quite interesting, especially if you then went into Spider-Man 3.
I think the idea to make a movie centered around the villains is at least it's fresh.
Yeah,
at least it's something different. I'm quite looking forward to it.
They could potentially pit the Sinister Six against Oscorp, because they are sort of responsible for creating all of them in their flawed way.
Yeah, that would make sense.
They could bring in, like, I don't know, a Spider-Man villain that they have to defeat, and then they come up with some dastardly plan to defeat Spider-Man because he's just a pest to them. But like you say, we've also got the Venom movie, which is slated to release before Spider-Man 3 as well.
Right.
So it could be related to that. And that could set up Carnage, and that could be absolutely amazing. So it's all to play. It's all to play for.
I'm not convinced. It kind of sounds like the same format as the other comic book hero movies, but just with their villains. It's like Sony is like, we know that the Spider-Man villains are potentially kind of more interesting than protagonists sometimes. So let's just make a movie with all the villains fighting something. Maybe. I mean, like you say, we know very little about it as of yet. We don't even know who makes up the remaining 2 of the 6.
Well, this is it.
So, who knows?
Who knows? Who knows indeed. So yeah, moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll. I don't know now.
What about the quickly touch on the Deadpool?
Oh yeah,
trailer,
yes.
trailer
There
we
was.
got shown.
There was some footage from trailer. Footage from trailer. I'm just going to cut all this bit out because I'm just mumbling like an idiot now.
All right.
So there was also the Deadpool footage that got leaked. Now I'm sure I've seen that somewhere before, or at least read about it before. But
I haven't seen this yet. What's going on with that?
The idea is you got Deadpool sitting up on this ledge. He's drawing a picture, chatting to the audience. The whole fourth wall breaking, and then he sees these guys who have presumably just committed a crime. Jumps down, jumps into their car, kicks their asses. There's a guy on a bike that sort of turns around as the car's flipping, and he's firing his machine gun off, and the car goes over the top, and Deadpool shows him the picture that he's drawn and chops his head off.
Oh, good.
It's pretty stylish. It's cool. And we believe it is Ryan Reynolds' voice, so it's not like some fake footage video. It's all CGI test footage, but it's really well done. But I mean, it shows some good potential for what Deadpool could be.
It's certainly the right approach.
Is it a CGI movie, or does it look like a CGI movie?
It's CGI footage.
Okay.
But it's like a sort of test reel thing. It's what they would show to Marvel to get green light.
Oh, I see.
But it seems to be delivered in the right way. You know, at the end, he's sort of waggling this decapitated head around, making jokes. You know, there's a certain way you've got to approach Deadpool to make that authentically. Mm-hmm. You could quite easily take the idea of the character and make a PG-13 movie about him, but it wouldn't be.
Which they did.
It wouldn't be what it needed to be.
Yeah, because I think X-Men Origins Wolverine did him a bit of an injustice.
Shh. don't even mention it.
Don't evoke Deadpool there.
That film is an absolute train wreck. So.
And Ryan Reynolds just looks sad throughout a lot of it.
Well, that's because they killed Deadpool before Wolverine and Sabretooth killed him. The studio killed him. The merc with a mouth, and they sew his mouth up.
Yeah. It's brilliant. It's genius. So bold.
I think the thing that annoyed me the most about X-Men Origins Wolverine, apart from the rest of the terrible storyline, was like in the lore of Wolverine, he loses his memory due to the procedure that he goes through. But no, in this version, he gets shot in the head with an adamantium bullet, which is why he loses his memory. I mean, what the fuck?
It's like it's a good exercise in how far you can suspend disbelief. That film, like it's because I think there's a fair amount in every comic book film. It's like, yes, I can believe that being bitten by a radioactive spider gives me spider superpowers. Like, yes, I believe Superman's powers come from the sun because he was born on a bigger planet or something. But I cannot believe that being shot in the head with an adamantium bullet.
Well, this is it. I'm sure we've talked about this before. Suspending disbelief. Like, I cannot suspend it any further than it already is.
It just snaps at that point. It's kind of a masterpiece in that way. Like it's like because most people at that point would just go, nope, that's it. Like no more. I have eaten all the shit you've thrown at me for 2 hours. But that is the step too far. It's a really common complaint about that film, because all of it is awful and terrible belief suspending things happen before then.
Whenever I think of that movie, I think of that one scene where I think Gambit's climbing up the ladder, and Wolverine's just destroying the ladder underneath him, and it's just been reduced to like it's just disappearing in front of him as he's hacking it up.
Yes, exactly.
That's what I think about when I think about that movie, and it just makes me sad.
I think about the scene where Will.i.am teleports into Sabretooth's hand, and it doesn't just cause a nuclear explosion, because that's what actually would happen. And that's where my disbelief began to get suspended.
I just like to not think about that film. I think of that film as not existing.
Yeah. Why was Will.i.am in it? To be fair, actually, he was one of the highlights of it, which really says how bad that film was.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's like, I really enjoyed all the scenes with Will.i.am in it. You must have been doing something dreadfully wrong for that to be the most positive thing.
Oh, man. Yeah, so the less said about that movie, the better. Yeah. I think.
But hopefully it will serve as an example. Of how not to do.
I think Bryan Singer took that all on board when when he
retconned it, basically.
Yeah.
And got retconned twice. The First Class retconned it, and then Days of Future Past re-retconned it just in case.
Yeah, in case nobody got the message. That film is gone from the timeline.
I think I've said this before, but one of the biggest things about Days of Future Past that I enjoyed was the apologetic tone that it took on.
It's just we're Like we've had some good times, we've had some bad times, some really bad times.
Especially that last 15 minutes. That last 15-minute block was like, guys, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just accept my apology.
Saying that, actually, that's quite disappointing that Comic-Con, there was nothing about X-Men Apocalypse, was there? Like, I haven't read a single thing about it.
Good.
That's really disappointing because I would have liked at least a little smidgen of information.
Well, I think it's good because we're gonna find out about it closer to the time. It's not going to be a Dawn of Justice thing where we get excited about 4 seconds of footage, and then we wait 2 years for the movie.
I suppose Marvel have done quite a good job as well with regards to Age of Ultron because they did show a little bit at Comic-Con. There was some footage, and they've shown some sort of physical prop replicas and things, which is cool. But they haven't the hype train's there. I think they just acknowledge the fact that the hype train's there, and they're just slowly trickling information out. Doing little bits on Twitter and little interviews, but they're not like, this is our movie, these are the characters, these are the pictures, buy it.
Yeah, it's not as in your face as Dawn of Justice.
Yeah.
And I think it is, as kind of you guys said earlier, that DC have got this one franchise, this one thing that's coming out that's massive, whereas Marvel have got loads of things that are all pretty massive. So it's not as in your face because they're spreading it out. They don't want kind of one film to take away hype from the other. So you have like bursts of hype. So it's all Guardians of the Galaxy, Guardians of the Galaxy, Guardians of the Galaxy at the moment, with a little bit of Age of Ultron, a little bit of kind of swaps. And then when each film has its time, it will get hyped in the way that they tend to.
Yeah.
And of course there's post-credit scenes, but that's for kind of people that have already seen the film and are willing to stay and watch through the credits.
That's me.
I cannot wait for the post-credit scene from Guardians. I really can't. I can't believe that I'm looking forward to that probably more than the movie at this point, which is so sad.
For me, I think it'll be confusing, and I will have to Wikipedia whoever the hell shows up in it to find out why they're relevant.
Now, before we call time on this podcast, I just want to have a quick mention for the World of Warcraft movie, which the lucky bastards that were at Comic-Con got to see some footage from.
Yes.
I've read the description, and it gave me goosebumps. So I can't imagine what the actual trailer is going to do to me.
I can't share your excitement as I'm not the biggest World of Warcraft fan. I'm very interested in the whole universe. I love Hearthstone, so I am looking forward to the movie definitely. But obviously, I'm not brushed up on the lore as much as you are, Chris. So
yes,
forgive me for not getting these films.
It's a great universe, though. It's just
it's so rich in lore, and they're so lucky to have Duncan Jones on board.
Yes.
So they're really lucky to have Duncan Jones on board because he understands the world and what's going on. I mean, one of the biggest sort of bits of feedback that I've seen from the trailer is that it doesn't sound like there's a bad guy, because you get this narration from someone on the human side, then you get a narration from someone on the Horde side, the Orc side, and they're saying it doesn't seem like they're surprised that none of them seem like the bad guy, but that's the point.
Yeah.
Didn't Duncan Jones kind of walk into all the bigwigs at Blizzard and say, "Yeah, I like this script, but it's actually a bit shit"?
Well, that was it. I mean,
you've got it all wrong.
At BlizzCon last year, Chris Metzen was saying how they had this script written up and they were interviewing directors, and Duncan Jones came in and said, "Look, I'll do the movie, but we're gonna have to rewrite that script." Because the original script was a sort of humans versus orcs, good guys versus bad, red versus blue sort of thing that had been written up. And he said, "Look, I'll do the movie, but we've got to change the script. It's not red versus blue."
I've Blizzard. They have played their later games. Right? They didn't just kind of stop at Warcraft 2.
No, I don't know who did the original sort of treatment for it, but But saying we've got to approach this from two sides.
Yeah, it's not just black and white. It has to be portrayed properly.
And that's one of the best things about Warcraft 3 as a game, for example, going back, because I haven't played World. So Warcraft 3.
But I mean,
I spent loads of time
the original, the one, two, and 3 were tremendous games. Anyway, they sort of set the stage for the MMO.
But the the way that it tells such a rich and interesting story is that you do play it from every different side, and you understand how they're all motivated to do something. And in Warcraft 3, there is a big bad, but it's a sensible big bad. And in one campaign, you're helping the big bad guy. In another campaign, you're actively fighting against them.
Well, I mean, I can see this movie having some a lot of interplay between the two races, and then there will be a big bad, and then there'll be that awesome moment when the sort of two heroes of each side sort of join forces and look at each other smouldering before they have to go and devastate the big bad. And then
sounding very much Batman versus Superman, isn't it?
It is a bit, isn't it?
When you put it like that,
yeah,
that same sort of premise.
Well, Batman vs Superman is going to end with about 10 minutes of them just kicking Jesse Eisenberg, I think.
Let's not muddy the water though and talk about the potential mess that Batman v Superman could be.
Yeah, but I think that's such a kind of integral part of Warcraft storytelling is that everybody's a character. Like, there isn't just in kind of a similar way to some of the Spider-Man movies so far. There isn't just a bad guy who's a bad guy for the sake of being a bad guy. There is, everybody's kind of built and developed and's got motivations, and that's what makes it interesting. And so you're not kind of rooting for any individual side. So I'm really surprised that initial Warcraft scripts were humans versus a slathering race of orcs.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I mean, you're going a bit too close to Lord of the Rings there.
And yeah, exactly.
As I was just saying what I was saying about the potential way the movie could go, I was thinking, wouldn't it be great? I mean, you probably shouldn't throw Deathwing in straight away, but but I was thinking, if Deathwing was in it, then it might look a bit too much like The Hobbit, which is also coming out. And I think that Warcraft is going to take a lot of comparisons to people who don't know the universe.
Of course it is.
And it's going to be looked at alongside Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
But they stole a lot of it from Tolkien, so it's kind of fair, I guess, that it gets compared to the Lord of the Rings films which preceded it.
I think it just needs the right execution. But by the sounds of what Duncan Jones wants to do, then it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think so. Looking forward to it.
Definitely. And on that note, we'll call time on this one. Thanks for listening. I've been Chris.
I've been Jake.
I've been Ben.
Catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.